Industrial sector is one of the very important sectors of an economy. High growth and development of an economy can be ensured through growth of industrial sector. Indian industrial sector was quite advanced before the British captured India's economy. India's handicraft had good recognition in the world's economy. During British rule, not only India's economy was exploited, rather industrial base was also destroyed completely. Especially the Indian handicraft was affected very adversely. At the time of independence, or we can say that during the initial years of planning in India, there was stagnation in the Indian economy and industrial sector was extremely underdeveloped with very weak infrastructure. One of the very basic infrastructures for industrialization, that is power supply, was also not available sufficiently. Even other basic requirements of the industrialization, that is technological and industrial skill, were very short in supply. There was predominance of consumer goods industries. The ratio of consumer goods and capital goods industries was 62:38. Because of all these factors, from the very beginning of planned India, industrialization remained one of the major concerns. After studying this module, we shall be able to know about the industrial growth of India during various plans since independence, learn repairing and rebuilding process of the industrial growth, identify the trends of industrial growth, evaluate industrial growth achieved since independence, analyze the growth achieved during the various plans. Let us first understand the phase 1 for repairing of industrial base. First 5-year plan. In the light of above factors, that is insufficient power supply and lack of technological and industrial skill phase, one was laid down as the foundation for industrial development for future. In the light of all these factors, the first 5-year plan was started with the features of underdeveloped economy's industrial structure. Because most of the production was taking under the consumer goods industries, the major areas were cotton textile, sugar, salt, soap, leather goods, paper, etc. Industries of capital goods were also established, but these were producing below the desired capacity and very low as per to the requirement of the economy. The key industries like coal, cement, steel, power, etc. were also performing below their capabilities. So, we can say that first 5-year plan was started in the backward atmosphere of industrial sector where there was a small beginning for capital goods industries. Intermediate industries were also not doing well, and to some extent consumer goods industries were established. So, the very first plan started with the objective of industrial planning in India, but still the vision was for the establishment of both the sectors, that is the private and the public sectors in the economy. That is why in the very first industrial policy resolution 1948 of independent India, small numbers of industries were reserved for public sector. The production and control of atomic energy and ownership and management of railways were reserved for central government, while some other key industries like coal, iron and steel, aircraft manufacturing, shipbuilding, minerals, etc. were reserved for either central or state government undertakings. The private sector also set up a number of industries, majority of which were consumer goods sector like sugar, bicycle, automobiles, cotton textiles, etc. Also, because the first plan was not started with the vision of large-scale industrialization, only 2.8% of total outlay was allocated to the industries and minerals. The development of key industries was always the main objective of Indian planning, because the expansion of such basic industries plays the important role of support to other sectors of the economy. There was a strong need to develop the industrial sector of the economy, and the scope was so wide that the public sector took the major responsibilities for the development of industries where the private sector is either unwilling or unable to produce. That is why industries which were supposed to be less risky and more profitable were left only for the private sector. The basic aim was to achieve the total production of the industrial sector of the economy. Phase 2. Construction of strong industrial base. Second 5-year plan. By 1956, attitude towards public sector was changed. Now, the public sector was not for the investment where private sector finds it difficult, rather it was for the explicit preference of the state ownership where commanding heights of the economy could be achieved. So, the second 5-year plan was started with the top priority of industrialization. The expenditure on industry and minerals were increased to 20.1% of the total outlay. Second 5-year plan was started to implement the recommendations of Industrial Policy Resolution of 1956, which was based on Mahalanobis's model. Top priority was given for the establishment of basic key industries at large scale to build strong industrial base for future. 3 steel plants were set up in public sector at Bhilai, Rourkela and Durgapur. To ensure the commendable performance of the industrial sector, private sector expansion and modernization programs were also undertaken. Third 5-year plan. Third 5-year plan was started with the aim of self-sustainability for upcoming plans and growth of the economy. The main focus was on machine building industries. So, the expansion of heavy engineering, casting, iron and steel industries, etc. was under consideration during the plan. The focus was also to increase the production of basic raw materials like aluminium, minerals, chemicals, etc. For third 5-year plan, the expenditure on industry and minerals was 20.1% of the total outlay. Second and third 5-year plans were highly focused on basic and key industries in the economy. These industries were mostly heavy in capital goods industries. That is why major parts of investment was done in the public sector only. As a result, the size of the public sector grew rapidly during this period. Most of the consumer goods industries were left for the private sector. One of the main reasons was that the most of the consumer goods industries were of small scale and profit margins were also supposed to be high in these industries. Phase 3, Industrial Deacceleration. Fourth 5-year plan. There was no major change in the industrial policy after third 5-year plan. So, in the fourth 5-year plan, with the same targets of industrial growth, the expenditure on industry and minerals was 18.2% of the total outlay. Fifth 5-year plan. Fifth 5-year plan was also launched with the same objectives of industrialization. But the expenditure on public industrial sector was increased slightly from 18.2% in the fourth plan to 22.8% of the total outlay. Industrial growth according to Planning Commission of India during the first 3 decades of planning period were as follows. First plan ranging from 1951-52 to 1955-56 has the industrial growth of 7.3%. Second plan ranging from 1956-57 to 1960-61, the industrial growth was 6.6%. Third plan ranging from 1961-62 to 1965-66, the industrial growth was 9%. Annual plans from 1966-67 to 1968-69, the industrial growth was 2%. Fourth plan ranging from 1969-70 to 1973-74, the industrial growth was 4.7%. Fifth plan ranging from 1974-75 to 1978-79, the industrial growth was 5.9%. Hence, the total growth from 1950-51 to 1978-79 was 6.1%. Let us now study phase 4, is the phase of industrial recovery. Sixth 5-year plan. Almost 30 years of planned industrial development in India, industrial production increased by 5-folds. Output of almost all the sectors increased remarkably. It covered consumer goods industries as well as the capital goods and the intermediate goods industries. But the industrial development during this period was quantitative only. Development of industrial sector was not cost effective. Thus, the establishment of industries was not at optimum allocation, which indicates the underutilization of capacity. It was also realized that the public sector was not able to generate sufficient resources for the economy. Also, because of the policies of the public sector, regional disparities were increased by the time. The backward regions of the country could not enjoy the benefits of industrial development. industrial expansion as well as the new industrial setup was taking place only nearby the existing industrial sectors. Most of the backward areas were remained untouched by industrial development. All these factors compelled the Planning Commission of India to rethink on the existing policies. So, the 6th five-year plan focused on the optimum utilization of existing resources to curb the cost, which could be possible only through enhancement of productivity, and special focus was given on the capital goods industries, electronic industries and the improvement in the energy efficiency, etc. To achieve the set targets, industrial policy was also changed. India took a step ahead to liberalize industrial and trade policies, which resulted in high growth of industrial product, and the consumer durables in chemical industries were much ahead of other sectors. In the 6th plan, the expenditure on the industrial sector was 13.7% of the total outlay. 7th five-year plan. 7th plan also experienced the same strategy of industrial policies as was of 6th. Because the growth rate of industrial sector was approximately 8% during this period, as it was targeted to be 8.7% per annum, but could be achieved at slightly low 8.5% per annum. The expenditure on public sector industries was 11.9% of the total outlay. It can be seen that compared to the 6th plan, the 7th plan achieved higher annual growth in the manufacturing and electricity sectors. According to Planning Commission of India, growth rate of industrial sector can be compared with the help of the following table. Following is the industry group with the weights and 7th plan average and 1990-91 percentage growth rate of the different sectors. Food products of weight 5.327 had a growth rate of 5% in the 7th plan and 12.5% in 1990-91. Next, beverage, tobacco and tobacco products of weight 1.571 had a growth rate in the 7th plan of -1.1%, and in 1990-91 it had a growth rate of 1.3%. Next, cotton textiles. It has a weight of 12.309 and the growth rate in the 7th plan was 1.8%, and in 1990-91 it was 14.7%. Next, jute, hemp and mesta textiles of weight 1.999 had a growth rate of -0.3% in the 7th plan, and in 1990-91 it was 4.4%. Next, textiles products including wearing apparel of weight 0.817 had a growth rate in the 7th 5-year plan as 11.8%, and in 1990-91 the growth rate was minus 32%. Next, wood and wood products and furniture and fixtures of weight 0.448 had a growth rate of minus 2.5% in the 7th 5-year plan and 12.7% in 1990-91. Next, paper and paper products of weight 3.235 had a growth rate in the 7th 5-year plan as 6.7%, and in 1990-91 the growth rate for it was 9%. Next, manufacture of leather and fur products. It weighted 0.489 with a growth rate of 6.4% in the 7th 5-year plan and 3.1% in 1990-91. Manufacturer of rubber, plastic, petroleum and coal products of weight 4.0 had a growth rate of 3.6% in the 7th 5-year plan and minus 0.1% in 1990-91. Next, manufacture of chemicals and chemical products. It weighted 12.513, and in the 7th 5-year plan it had a growth rate of 11.7% and 2.7% of growth rate in 1990-91. Next, basic metals and alloy industries. It weighted 9.802 with a growth rate of 6.1% in the 7th 5-year plan, and in 1990-91 the growth rate was 10.8%. Next, manufacture of non-metallic minerals. It weighted 2.299 with a growth rate of 6.7% in the 7th 5-year plan and 1.7% in the 1990 and 91 period. Next, metal products and parts. Its weight was 2.888 with a growth rate of 6.3% in the 7th 5-year plan and 0.4% in 1990-91. Next is machinery, machine tools and parts. Its weight was 6.240 with the growth rate in the 7th 5-year plan of 6% and 8.4% in 1990-91. Next, manufacture of electrical machinery. Its weight was 5.779 with a growth rate of 25.8% in the 7th 5-year plan and 22.4% in 1990-91. Next, manufacture of transport equipment and parts. Its weight was 6.386 with a growth rate of 6.5% in the 7th 5-year plan and 6.3% in 1990-91. Next, miscellaneous manufacturing industries. Its weight was 0.905 with a growth rate of 23.1% in the 7th 5-year plan and minus 2.9 in the 1990 and 91 period. Next is manufacturing. The weight for manufacturing was 77.107 the growth rate in manufacturing was 8.9% in the 7th 5-year plan and 9.1% in 1990-91. Next is mining and quarrying. Its weight was 11.464 with a growth rate of 5.6% in the 7th 5-year plan and 4.9% in the 1990 and 91 period. Next is electricity. Its weight was 11.429 and the growth rate in electricity in the 7th 5-year plan was 9.3% and in 1990-91 it was 8.7%. Overall index has weighted 100% with a growth rate of 8.5% in the 7th 5-year plan and 8.5% in 1990-91. Among the major industry groups, the annual growth rate of textile products, basic metals and alloys, metal products and parts, electrical machinery and appliances and other manufacturing products accelerated during the 7th plan period, whereas those of beverages, tobacco and tobacco products, wood and wood products decelerated. Phase 5, rebuilding the industrial sector. 8th 5-year plan. After experiencing severe balance of payment crisis during the 7th 5-year plan, the new industrial policy was launched on 24th of July 1991, in which the roles of both the sectors, that is private and the public sectors, were drastically changed. Now, it was the private sector which had to be at the major responsibilities for industrial sector growth in the economy, especially in the industries where security and strategic considerations were not important. Liberalization measures were the main focus of this new industrial policy in the economy. The public sector was concentrated to basic and core industries only. Because of this new aspect, the total outlay for the public sector was reduced to 9.3% of the total outlay. 8th plan focused less on the quantitative targets, rather emphasized on the growth of different sectors of the economy through modifications in the industrial, trade, fiscal policies and changes in the duties, etc. So, the economy's industrial sector could meet the challenge at international level at the front price and quality. The plan targeted 7.3% per annum growth in the manufacturing sector, but the actual rates was little high at 7.4% per annum. 9th 5-year plan. The effect could also be seen satisfactory as performance the growth rate of industrial sector during almost 1 decade for 8.9% plan experienced per annum, the deterioration could only in the industrial sector only at 5% per annum. The expenditure of the public sector on industrial and mineral was just 5% of the total outlay. 10th 5-year plan. The government strategy of liberalization and privatization of industrial sector was continued in 10th 5-year plan also. Because of this reason, government reduced the allocation to the industrial sector to give more space to the private sector for their expansion. The plan set the target of 10% per annum. The responsibility to achieve this target was on the private sector because public sector has started to decline in size. But India could achieve only 8% growth in the industrial sector. The main objective of the plan was strengthening the industrial machinery in the economy. This was the period of peace and harmony in the industrial relations. Industries had to face much stronger competition because now markets were more open. The main focus was
11th five-year plan.
Industrial environment in which started private
with
sector
the targets
as well as
high industrial
the public
growth
sector
of
companies
10%
can
but
become
could
more
achieve
efficient
only
and
7.2%.
competitive. Only few industries could go beyond this. Only electronics, gas, water supply, etc. could grow at the rate of 10.01%. 12th five-year plan. India has become one of the fastest growing economies in the world over the last 2 decades. 12th five-year plan is also witness of this
Let
fact.
us now summarize
During this
what
plan,
we have studied.
the main
in
focus
this module.
is on textiles, construction and information technology, tourism and healthcare sector. After independence, India had great challenge for the upliftment of industrial sector as during the British rule our indigenous industries and artisans were completely destroyed by the colonial rule for their vested interest. India adopted 5-year planning system based on the Mahalabosis model. In the outset, emphasis was paid on the consumer goods such as cotton, sugar, bicycle, automobiles, etc. Initially, heavy industries such as power generation, atomic energy, railways, etc. were reserved for the public sector and only low risk and high profitable industries were taken up by the private sector. Till 30 years of planning in India, laying of infrastructure remained a great task. It was in 1991 only when a remarkable change came in our policy in the form of liberalization, giving hope for double-digit growth in the economy. Though the results were not optimum best, but still India achieved 7 to 8% growth rate in industrial sector. Even when the global recession affected the growth adversely worldwide, the performance of the Indian economy remained remarkable, keeping growth rate around 5 and 6% during this era. Though the impact of liberalization was too slow and our economy was not developing as fast as Japan and China, the considerable developments of few sectors in industries such as electronics and computers, automobiles, etc. played role of a booster, making India one of the fastest emerging economy in the world.